There's a California bill right now in the state legislature there that's been introduced that restricts local and state law enforcement officials from covering their faces. And I think we all understand that's absolutely necessary. These fucking monsters, these brown shirt fascist bastards that are going around busting people in hospitals and immigration centers and schools and workplaces and farm fields, these son of a bitches are exactly what Hitler had when he had the SA, the precursor to the SS. They're thugs, they're son of a bitches, they are bully boys, and I would imagine most of the people involved in ICE are not there because they believe in law and order. They're there because they are thug motherfuckers who like to beat people up and pretend like they are real men. So they go after women, kids, teenagers, workers, just evil sons of bitches. That's a gut level feeling for me. Jarvis DeBerry, writing for MSNBC, said this, quote, as sickening as it is to see Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE agents, snatch people off our streets, it's even more disturbing to see them go about their work with their faces masked. If you were to make a list of things that viscerally register as un-American, few things would rank higher than the spectacle of secret police pouncing and disappearing meat plant workers and nannies and graduate students. The basic principle is that these police are not accountable to the public, and that requires, at a minimum, knowing who these police are. He goes on in this piece at msnbc.com, but the truth is, we in this country have been primed to expect to see the faces of police officers. We've also been told, and this is not recommended with these fucking thugs who dress up like gangsters, like Nazi SA, but we've also been told that we can demand an officer's name and badge number. Don't try that at home. Now, that's worked largely much better in theory than in practice. If you have ever been stopped by the police, I've been stopped by the police many times, usually for some kind of a traffic offense or for civil disobedience. But I don't think I've ever said to one of the officers, whether they were federal or state or county, who stopped me, hey, I want your badge number and your name. It's just not something I do because to me it's kind of unnecessarily antagonistic, right? Because usually when I've been busted, it's because I'm breaking some order by a direct order by a cop or a marshal or somebody who just doesn't like to see demonstrators. You know what I'm saying, right? But anyway, the basic principle in law enforcement in this country is that the cops are accountable to us, the public. And as Jarvis points out, that requires at a minimum knowing who the hell they are, right? A California state senator named Scott Wiener wrote on X Monday this, quote, we're seeing the rise of secret police, masked, no identifying info, even wearing army fatigues, grabbing and disappearing people. This is antithetical to democracy, and it harms communities, end quote. One of his Democratic colleagues, you're not going to hear any Christian fuckers out there screeching about this because the Christian bastards love this. This is what they want. But another Democratic colleague, State Senator Jesse Araguin, along with Scott Wiener, have introduced that bill called the No Secret Police Act. And Senator Wiener says, quote, this can help end the fear and chaos that police wearing masks creates in communities, end quote. Now, a California liberal drafting a bill that aims to increase accountability of the cops, that whole thing, of course, by the time the Fox putrid fucking fascist sewer television garbage hole got their hands on it, one of their slimy little hosts there, some freak named Will Kane, said that this measure to get cops to show their faces is a measure that, quote, imperils the lives of law enforcement officers This little prick Will Kane said, "Hard to believe this is real," unquote. Now, if you remember, it wasn't that long ago that so-called conservatives in this country, political actors, were using the term jackbooted government thugs to describe federal agents. You remember that back during the Clinton era and into the Baby Bush era. For example, those federal agents who grabbed Elian Gonzalez, you remember that? The 6-year-old kid? He was snatched by those crazy fuckers from his Miami relatives 25 years ago so the kid could be returned to his father in Cuba. Those jackbooted thugs, as the right-wingers referred to them, were especially seen as an example of secret police and thuggery by the government, even though their faces were visible, if you remember that. Now, this little prick on this Fox sewer, Will Kane, his big deal, his gooey, gushy bullshit is representative of a prevailing attitude now among modern-day right-wingers, these neo-fascists and Christian devils, who believe that aggressive policing, violence, is a good thing, but only if the Christians are in charge of the people doing this thuggery. Isn't that interesting? Well, and as Jarvis points out, just as it was during the first Trump administration, we're seeing a difference between our expectations and the law. He goes on to write this: as Americans protested Minneapolis police murdering George Floyd 5 years ago, Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser complained in a letter to Trump about, quote, unidentified federal personnel patrolling the streets, end quote. However, at the time, this little prick Bill Barr was the Attorney General, and he said at a news conference, quote, in the federal system, we don't wear badges with our names. I mean, the agents don't wear badges and their names and stuff like that, which many civilized police agencies do, or many civilian police agencies do, end quote. But it was happening with local law enforcement agencies too. You know, this idea, put on the curvy black sunglasses and have your fucking weaponry on you. And don't forget those big biceps, motherfucker. Get into the gym, build up those biceps. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Carry your club, carry your baton, carry your gun, carry your mace and your poison, because you're a real goddamn man and you're going to stop those fucking demonstrators from parading down the middle of the street, right? During the protests in 2020 about the murder of George Floyd, there were all sorts of reports of demonstrators, people like me, maybe like you, who encountered local police who'd covered up the names on their badges. So the mayors at the time of New York, Chicago, and Seattle said they're not going to tolerate officers who did that. And, we have to keep in mind, during the Cold War, U.S., Soviet Union, blah, 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 the idea was that the fascist regimes all embodied this kind of secret, unaccountable police fascist force. And we here in the United States had a liberal tradition that was a total contrast. Stuart Schrader, who's a professor at Johns Hopkins University and the author of a book entitled Badges Without Borders, How Global Counterinsurgency Transformed American Policing. He said this, quote, during the Cold War, the idea was that the fascist regimes all embodied this kind of unified, secretive, unaccountable type of police force. And the United States had a liberal tradition that was a definite contrast. He went on, probably even to this day, if you're taking introductory criminology courses, or if you're training to become a police officer, you would still encounter this argument as a sort of tradition that distinguishes the U.S. from other places. I think there are a lot of problems with the argument, but it is a very common trope, end quote. And this author, this professor, Stuart Schrader, he dismisses as his words, completely preposterous, the argument that ICE agents need masks for their protection. Jesus fucking Christ, these people. Especially given that hundreds of thousands of cops in the United States go about their daily job of enacting coercive force sometimes while having a name plate and a badge number and no mask. And as Schrader said, it's hard to take the argument about wearing these face coverings seriously because it's so fucking ridiculous. I added the fucking there. And then Jessica Tarlov, who is the token liberal on the Fox Sewer program, The Five, apparently she's among those who've argued that some ICE agents are covering their faces because they know what they're doing is shameful. Professor Schrader says he rejects that argument. He says, quote, it's really about destroying any possibility of public accountability and changing the political culture. He adds, the mask wearing is moving us away from our ideals of transparency toward intimidation, fear, and lack of accountability, end quote. And as Jarvis points out, this idea of masked federal police should frighten every American. And it doesn't matter if those thugs are coming for us or not. They may not be right now. But what about next week? What about next month? What about when this fucking toilet rat finally decides to declare a national emergency or some form of ending all civil rights and civil rights protections in the U.S. Constitution, which he is itching. He said he's going to do it. And one thing you know about this orange-faced asshole, when he threatens something destructive or violent or ugly or mean, he usually follows through because he's such an asshole. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. You know, the Progressive Voices Network brings you commercial-free commentary from today's leading progressive radio hosts and pundits, like me, Mike Malloy, 24 hours a day. I'm not your typical old guy from the 80s or the 90s talk radio host, and Progressive Voices is not your typical talk radio network. It's a listener-supported nonprofit with no corporate control whatsoever over our broadcast. So hosts like me, Mike Malloy, are free to rant and scream and carry on about whatever we like. We're often controversial, but we're never boring. Weeknights, 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West on the Progressive Voices Network. Always progressive, always on. I'm Mike Malloy. Keep it lit.